Hi, I'm Tim Amyx. It's 1999 and on February 15th I'll be 40 years old. This video presentation you're about to see is made for, and Nicole's birthday is April 18th. I'm making this video primarily for two reasons. One, to show something to my children, which as of today are Nicole and Isabella, and to any grandchildren I have down the road, for something for them to see what their old man was up to the first 40 years of his life. Aside from them, the rest of you, family, friends and colleagues, here's what I've been up to for the first 40 years of my life. Enjoy the show.
As the 1950s were winding down, there were two events that would soon shake the world. The U.S. began a space race against the Soviet Union, and my mom got pregnant. In February of 1959, NASA began the Mercury space program. That same month, on the 15th, I was born in San Jose, California. That's me with my mom, Marietta Gonzalez. This is my dad, Chester Amyx, when he graduated from San Jose State University. When I was 1 year old, we moved to Bakersfield, California. My dad started teaching at Bakersfield High School. In December 1960, my first sibling arrived, little brother Kirk Amyx. Our tract home on Kaibab Street was a new 3-bedroom house that cost my parents $12,000. During this year, my mom stayed home to take care of me. When I turned 3 in 1962, I began to recognize and remember people around me. I was lucky enough to grow up knowing all 4 of my grandparents, Eloy and Tilly Gonzalez, and Leon and Elvira Amyx. I'd remained particularly close to my Amyx grandparents for the next 37 years. By 1963, I started preschool. One of the snacks I always enjoyed was watermelon. I now hate watermelon. The big event of 1963 was the assassination of JFK. I was 4.5 years old at the time and remember nothing of the event. In 1964, I entered kindergarten. I can't remember any of my friends, but I do remember the baby chickens that we hatched in an incubator. This year, our family would make its first trip to Disneyland with my cousins David and Linda Broom. I also learned how to ride a bike and roller skate this year. Well, sort of. In 1965, my father accepted the position of art teacher at the newly founded Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo. He would teach there for the next 30-plus years. At 6 years old, I entered the first grade at Pacheco Elementary School in San Luis Obispo. I would be at the school for only 5 months, because in March of 1966, our family moved to the outskirts of San Luis Obispo and bought this 4-bedroom house in a neighborhood called the Country Club. The house cost my parents $21,000. There, I entered Los Ranchos Elementary School. This would be my school for the next 5 years. My first new friends were Brett Nielsen and Peter Freitas. My first childhood crush was on this little brown-eyed girl, Julie Hayes. In December of that year, my little sister, Marisa, was born. I was 8 years old in 1967 and remember riding a horse for the first time. My new best friend was Tim Oliver, and he and I spent a great deal of time making coasters. This year, I began my career as a musician. I began piano and trombone lessons. In the summer, our family took a 2-month camping vacation through the Southwest and Yellowstone National Park. 1968 was a hallmark year for the decade of the 60s. The Vietnam War, assassinations, hippies, drugs, and Major League Baseball. This may be the year I realized that there was a world happening outside of my house and block. This was also the year I began to play Little League Baseball, and the year my parents divorced. At school, in Mrs. Doherty's 4th grade class, we did square dancing on rainy days, and my new heartthrob was Susan Raggets. This was Susan in 1968. Here we are at a reunion 20 years later. During the summer of 1969, man walked on the moon, and I saw this event with my dad and Kirk on our 9-inch black and white TV in San Luis Obispo. This year, my father's family bought 40 acres of land in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. For the next 29 years, we camped among these pines and referred to it simply as the property. I also saw my first Giants game in person with my dad and Grandpa Amyx. 1970 began a new period of my life. Just 2 months after my 11th birthday, my mom remarried in April to Jim Nason. I now had a stepdad and 4 stepbrothers and sisters. That summer, Jim was transferred to San Francisco, and our family moved into this 3-bedroom home in Mill Valley, which we bought for $31,000. I entered the 6th grade at Tam Valley School and had to make new friends. 2 of my new friends would be friends for life, Pat Quinlan and Diane Voss. This was also the year that I went to my first 49er game. On the verge of becoming a teenager, I entered Edna McGuire Junior High School in 1971. In the spring, I got my first paper route, delivering 25 newspapers every afternoon to houses in Tam Valley. After the papers were delivered, I'd often spend a half hour watching my favorite cartoon, Super Chicken. It was also the first year I played organized tackle football. Here I am on the Pop Warner Tam Redskins. Girls and junior high school dances were a top priority this year. In the summer of 1972, I played golf almost daily with Kevin Alexander and Kenny Nakahiro. In the fall, during my second year in Pop Warner, I was switched from offensive tackle to defensive tackle. In September, my 8th grade class spent a week in Yosemite, my first of many visits to this very special place. Christmas in 1972 was spent in New Mexico with my Gonzales relatives. The spring of 1973 brought romance. First, a crush on Birdine Lee. Then, Carol Crawford. And finally, a big crush on Cindy Johnson. Cindy would become an especially good friend for the next 20 years. Following my interest in the previous year's elections, I ran for junior high school president at the Mill Valley Middle School on the platform of more school dances and a new Coca-Cola machine. This spring, Jim and Kirk built a darkroom in the extra bedroom, and I began a serious interest in photography. For Kirk, it was the beginning of a career. In the fall, I entered Tamalpais High School as a freshman and quarterback of the freshman football team. We finished the season with a record of 0-7. In the spring of 1974, I played on the freshman baseball team. Our coach was Fred Mack. Coach Mack was not only a great baseball coach, but became a huge role model for me for most of my high school years. In the fall of my sophomore year, I quarterbacked the junior varsity football team. We finished 0-8-1. My season ended when Bill Benz made a phantom block and I hyperextended my knee on this play. Ouch. I turned 16 years old in 1975 and got my driver's license, one of the great thrills of my life. Most of that summer was spent playing baseball and working 3 different jobs: delivery boy for the Strawberry Pharmacy, cook at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and busboy at the Corte Madera Sizzler. During the football season, teammate Jeff Hockey and friends Bill Benz and Brian Pinder joined me in a night of vandalism. We painted the Redwood High School cement ball in Tamalpais blue, just moments before the Larkspur police showed up and arrested us. By 1976, my father had started to remodel his Morro Bay house. Now, 23 years later, the house is almost done. Romance again was in the air in the spring. I met and fell head over heels for Lisa Tustin, who at that time was a senior while I was a junior. This romance would last 9 years. In the fall of 1976, I became a senior in high school. I was the co-captain of the varsity football team with Jeff Hockey and Guy Palmer. We led the team to an 0-10 record. The spring of 1977 would be my last one in Mill Valley for 15 years. Memorable events of this final semester in high school were hitting a home run against Terra Linda at Alberts Field, finishing our baseball season 9-5, and going to the prom with Carolyn Reynolds. Graduation was bittersweet. I was going to miss my high school friends, but was ready to leave Mill Valley. Before the summer was over, I played one last football game. I was chosen to represent Marin County as a defensive back in the Marin-Sonoma Football All-Star Game. I made a game-saving interception. I moved to my dad's house in Morro Bay in the fall and entered Cuesta Junior College. I immediately took an interest in radio television classes. In the spring of 1978, I retired from playing baseball and began coaching Babe Ruth baseball in Morro Bay. While at Cuesta College, I played on the school golf team. During the summer, I sold popcorn and worked the ticket booth at the Sunset Drive-In Theater in San Luis Obispo. In the fall, I returned to Cuesta for my second year and was chosen to be the music director on the college radio station. In the spring of 1979, I turned 20 years old, halfway to 40. I again played on the Cuesta College golf team. During the summer, I made my first movie, directing my friends in a Super 8 film called Heist at Quinn's. Just before leaving Morro Bay, I bought my first car, a 7-year-old 1972 Plymouth Duster, for $1,200. In the fall of 1979, I moved to Canoga Park, a suburb of Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. Joined by high school friends Pat Quinlan and Bob Andrews, we shared a 2-bedroom apartment for $310 a month. I spent 1 year at Pierce Junior College in Woodland Hills and played on the school badminton team. I was 21 years old in 1980 when I got my first showbiz job. I was hired by the TV show Soap to be a gopher. I was paid $175 a week for a job I gladly would have done for free. Aside from the many great friends and contacts I made while working on the show, I also got to work with future stars Billy Crystal and a very young Jerry Seinfeld. This was our company Christmas card photo from 1980. In the spring of 1981, I started playing softball with the company softball team. In March of 1981, there was the big 50th year wedding anniversary from my Amyx grandparents. My next job in television was as a casting assistant for the ABC series called Open All Night. While working on Open All Night, I met my good friend Don Hart. The summer marked the release of what was then and still is my favorite all-time movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. After a year and a half's worth of saved paychecks, I bought my first VCR, a Sony Betamax. 1982 started off with a bang. The bang was Dwight Clark's catch versus the Cowboys, a game I went to with Jim. In May, I married my high school sweetheart, Lisa Tustin. We moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Studio City with a rent of $400 per month. 1982 also ended with a bang, as I was accepted to the film school at USC. Very few events changed the course of my life more than my 2.5 years at USC. Entering as a transfer student in 1983, I made many friends who I've remained close to for over 15 years. During the summer of 1983, I spent 6 weeks in Mexico with classmates from the USC Foreign Language Department. I began filming 2 events this year. The first was a documentary on the Dipsy race for Jerry Hockey. I would spend the next 6 years filming the race. The second was filming the USC football games. I did this for 4 seasons, and my pay was all you could eat in the Coliseum press box. In 1984, I began filming my most ambitious USC student film to date. It was a kids-on-bike movie I made with John Pace called King of the Mountain. In May, Lisa and I adopted a little kitten named Alexander. The summer was spent working as an assistant editor on a documentary on the making of the Philadelphia experiment. It was my first paid editing-related job. USC built a new cinema department in 1984 as I began my final year in college. I was chosen, along with Fred Wardell, to edit my first talking movie, The Dream Machine. The winter of 1985 was memorable in that I began a ski friendship with my buddy Fred Wardell. We skipped school one day, drove to the mountains, and filmed a ski movie called Ski Hacks. Another USC movie I directed and edited was a documentary on the USC women's tennis team. Back in 1982, I was married 5 months after the 49ers won their first Super Bowl. Now, in 1985, 5 months after they won their second Super Bowl, Lisa and I divorced. This coincided with my graduation from USC and my first post-production job after college. I was hired in May as an apprentice editor for Roger Corman's company, New Horizons Pictures. My pay was $210 a week. All of 1986 was spent working at New Horizons Pictures, editing dozens of previews for B-movies. These were just a few. This year, friends from USC formed the nucleus of a group that would spend the next 3 years playing lots of softball on the weekends. Besides another ski trip to Mammoth with Fred and John, I made a trip to Yosemite with my USC pal Terry Lohr and her friends Karen and Bill. 1987 started off well. New friendships with Ann Tannen and Chantal Figali. In the spring, Randy Miller and I coached a Babe Ruth baseball team in Santa Monica. I directed my first behind-the-scenes documentary on a movie called Slumber Party Massacre Part 2. In August, my high school class had their 10-year anniversary. I directed and produced a video about the school and the teachers who were still teaching. Later that year, I edited my first movie, Andy Colby's Great Video Adventure. I also had a brief and stormy relationship with Paula Stein. This fatal attraction was part of the reason I left the country for Mexico 4 months later. 1988 brought a year of change. In the spring, I bought a motorcycle and drove to Guadalajara, Mexico. This became my new home for the next 8 months. Living with the Grijalva family, I spoke constant Spanish and studied at the local university during the day. Beginning with this wonderful and cute little teacher, Martha Elizalde, I began a chain of friends that would one day lead me to the altar. On November 13th, I met this dark-eyed woman whose name was Florencia, and was immediately hooked. She, however, wanted nothing to do with me. When I returned to California from Mexico, I discovered that my parents had adopted a teenage girl. My new little sister's name was Reina. The 49ers won the Super Bowl in January, on a last-minute pass from Montana to Taylor. I watched the game at Roger Gordon's house with a group of Tamalpans I didn't even know. I turned 30 years old in February, and that was no fun at all. In March, I made my first visit to Florencia's family ranch. My highlight job of the year was editing a documentary on the making of Old Gringo. In June, I ran my first Dipsy race in 1 hour and 12 minutes. It took a while, but after 7 months of letter writing, phone calls, serenades, and a second return to her family ranch, I won over Florencia's heart. So began a 15-month long-distance relationship. 1990 was a year of weddings. No fewer than a dozen friends and relatives were married this year. The biggest one was that of Florencia and myself in November. We honeymooned in Cancun, Cozumel, and Yosemite. The 10 months leading up to our wedding were filled with highs and lows. The 49ers won their 4th Super Bowl in January. Just a few days before the Super Bowl, Florencia's mother passed away. My big job for the year was editing the movie Slumber Party Massacre Part 3 for Roger Corman's studio. In the spring I got my first computer, a PC that was black and white and so slow it couldn't even run Windows. Florencia and I began our marriage in this one-bedroom apartment in Studio City. The rent was $575 a month. We bought a Suzuki Samurai as our second car. We took trips to Palm Springs and San Diego, and later skiing with Fred and Christine Ackle. USC pal Randy Miller introduced me to a writer-producer, Steve Slofkin, in March. Steve hired me to edit his new TV series for Nickelodeon called Salute Your Shorts. In May of 1992, Florencia and I, along with her cousin Martha, made our first trip ever to Las Vegas. This was also the year that we paid $10,000 for half an acre of land on the outskirts of Guadalajara. One of the final events while living in Los Angeles was playing on a flag football team in Hollywood. In July, we moved from Los Angeles to Mill Valley. Later in the fall, I began commuting to Los Angeles to edit TV specials and pilots. One of those jobs was co-editing the Laugh-In Show reunion. This TV show earned me my first Emmy nomination. Shortly into the year, I worked my first job in the Bay Area. I became an assistant editor on a small film that was editing at the Salzans Film Center in Berkeley.
In the spring, Florencia and I began running with a group called the Tamalpa Club. Not since my college days at USC did I make so many new friends so fast. Tamalpa was as much a social club as it was a running club.
In June, Florencia, Raina, Jim, and I hiked to the top of Half Dome in Yosemite. Later in the summer, I commuted again to Los Angeles for a short time, editing another Laugh-In TV special. This earned another Emmy nomination. After our summer vacation, Florencia found out she was pregnant. We celebrated the pregnancy by taking a 2-week driving tour of the Southwest. Also in the fall, I directed the instructional film Russ Kiernan's Dipsy Training Video. 1994 brought another trip to the Emmys in Pasadena, and another loss. Beginning in March, I took a full-time staff job working the night shift at Pacific Video Resources in San Francisco as an MPEG compressionist. April 18, 1994 was the big day. It was the day our oldest child, Nicole Gascon Amyx, was born. Florencia didn't run the Dipsy in June, but I ran my best time with a 68-minute finish. In August, the family went to Mexico for summer vacation, and it was here where Nicole was baptized. Christmas was spent in Boulder with my mom and Jim, and a number of relatives from the Gonzalez side of my family. Beginning in January of 1985, Florencia's niece Gloria came to live with us and helped take care of Nicole. In February, the family went to Grandma Tilly's 80th birthday party in Albuquerque. One final project I made with my grandfather shortly before he died was a movie called Walking with Rocks. In the fall, our niece Giselle was with us for a short time to take care of Nicole. For Halloween, we went to Santa Cruz for the O'Neill Company party. For wearing these silly costumes, we won first prize in the costume contest. Our prize was a 1-week paid vacation in Hawaii. I left the graveyard shift at PVR in August and went back to freelance editing. My first job was as an assistant editor on The Rock. In January, I went to Los Angeles to finish editing The Rock. In March, the family came down to Los Angeles, and we took Nicole to Disneyland for the first time. Her first attraction was a tiki room, and it terrified her. In May, Gloria went back to Mexico, and our next niece, Katya, came up to take care of Nicole. Later in the year, Katya returned, and niece number 4, Gabriela, took her place. My brother Kirk married Katie Nash in May, and I was asked to be reverend for a day and perform the ceremony. In the fall, I worked as an assistant on Mars Attacks and had my first chance to work at Skywalker Ranch in Marin County. In January of 1997, we discovered that Florencia was pregnant again. In early March, I took a job in Los Angeles as an assistant editor on Starship Troopers. I'd again be commuting to Los Angeles for another 6 months. In mid-March, we finally cashed in on our 1995 Halloween costume contest prize by taking our 1-week trip to Hawaii. Of the many things we did in Hawaii, one of the most memorable was trying to windsurf for the first time on Kauai. Our second daughter Isabella was born on October 2nd, just 35 minutes after Florencia walked into the hospital. 2 days after Isabella was born, my high school had our 20-year reunion. 1998 had me at one job for almost the entire 12 months. I was an assistant editor on the movie Stepmom. Gloria came back to live with us for the first half of the year and take care of baby Isabella and Nicole. When Gloria left later in the summer, we took on a new babysitter for the girls, Christina. In June, I ran my PR in the Dipsy in a time of 66 minutes, the same year that Russ Kiernan finally won. In the fall, I was sent with a film print of Stepmom to New York and Chicago to supervise public screenings. This was my first trip as an adult to each of these cities. This was a very brief look at my life. I've been blessed from day one with great parents and grandparents. Later, I was blessed with a wonderful stepfather, and again later, a terrific stepmother. I've had great friends, and I've been lucky enough to grow up close to my cousins and relatives. I married a woman who was a 10, and I was accepted by her family as one of their own. And now I have 2 beautiful daughters to share the second half of my life. If the title were not already copyrighted by another movie, I would say for me, it's been a wonderful life.